And we're back with more election coverage from the Star Wars Galaxy. No, we're actually here with another episode of what I keep calling Mando Chat, even though we've named it Mando Lore. And this is episode 10.
10, right.
Which is called The Passenger. Yeah. Really great episode. I've just been actually hunting down all these hyper obscure references that I kind of noticed in the background, but we'll get to that in a second. I think let's stick with tradition here and let you go first because I tend to talk too much.
This was a weird episode for me. I was entertained. I was having fun. I didn't hate it. I just found the, I don't want to get too much into it right now. I'll wait until you tell me how you feel about it. So it was a good episode. I had a couple of nitpickies about it. That's pretty much it. But it was entertaining. It's just, it wasn't coming off of that first episode of this season. This felt a little, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting.
So you're saying maybe that you felt a little bit of an anticlimax after an hour-long cinematic kind of ass whooping episode. Whereas,
and it kind of repeated a little bit of what happened in the first episode. So I was a little like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I liked it. I was feeling weird because I watched it and then I'm like, okay, is this going to be a goofy, jokey episode? I never want him to do that, but I was laughing out loud, like Amy Sedaris's Pelly rules, and like this whole vouching for someone with her life who she just met 10 minutes ago, like just stuff like that. I'm cool with, but the so it seemed really goofy, and then all of a sudden it opens up. This is the weird thing, like it kept kind of switching its tone.
Yeah.
It's just kind of harsh and murdery in the beginning. Like there's that ambush. He's still on Tatooine. He gets ambushed. Like it or not, he murders someone who he basically said, "Go ahead, take the jetpack," and then he just kills him. And the child looks up at him and sort of seems to be questioning this a little bit. So so therefore, as the audience, because I think in a lot of ways, like Baby Yoda's our proxy sometimes.
Yeah.
But so then we go to the comedy, and then we end up, back to the comedy after the ambush, because it's like Dr. Mandible, the bug guy. And then we go to this, like, he's out in space and he gets kind of pulled over by the police, which I thought was great. Talk about that. So, and then it's a chase scene. So all of a sudden we're back in this action sequence. So in a way, it's sort of like a Star Wars movie. I mean, we're getting all these different shifts, end up in this chase scene. And then it just gets kind of scarier and scarier, like to the point where, it's all these spider monsters chasing him. And it's just like, oh, this isn't looking good at all. Like we don't really, when he's being chased by the spiders, you don't necessarily clue in that he's already fixed his ship. Because it's just basically like they're going to get cornered and then they're kind of dead. And I kind of expected I did expect the New Republic guys to kind of swoop in and save him. That's kind of, and I think that would almost be my biggest nitpick is kind of, once again, as happens everywhere, all over sci-fi TV and movies, it's like, someone else could do it the last second. Because there's this anti-Jean-Claude Van Damme thing with the Mando, is he's always getting whooped. Like he's always getting beat up. His ship's a total ruin now. But something always saves him. And it's sort of like, I think in a way I would have liked it if he was arrested then. And then we go into that. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, don't end it on a high note or whatever.
I have to 100% agree with you when it comes down to the tonal shifts. They weren't subtle, and you go from I really did like them playing Sabacc and stuff like that. I thought like that. I found the humor to be okay because I was laughing about it. But the child eating the eggs, I'm like, has it been established before that Baby Yoda just eats things all the time now? Because this seems like a new thing, just to set up that he goes over and eats the spider egg thing, and then the end of this episode is full James Cameron aliens where they're just being chased after, and I'm like, holy smokes, what the heck is going on here? And like you said, they get saved in the end with sort of like a recap of like, here's all your good deeds that you've done.
Mm.
So I guess you're okay. And
Right.
what we were talking about last episode in regards to how they're sort of showing this interesting shift in when you're out in space, like the X-wings are sitting there, and they're kind of, you're like, well, these are supposed to be the good guys, and they didn't feel like it, like it
Well,
still had this cold sort of like, well, are they though?
that's great though. I think that's great
Yeah,
because I mean, Grief Karga, everybody's sort of established. Like Mando, Grief Karga suggests to Mando that he file a complaint about, the cannery, and Mando goes, "That's a joke." So I
yeah,
mean, like Mando's experience is that the New Republic is, you know, I think I can't remember if we talked about this or if I wrote about it, but I mean, the bottom line is like we've kind of established that the New Republic, probably to most people, would just be seen as like more of the same in a
mm-hmm.
certain sense. And so I mean, like this, people are not trusting authority. And I really quite love that he goes, "May the force be with you," to
Yeah,
those guys. Because think of it from Mando's point of view. Like he really doesn't even believe in this hokey stuff. I mean, Baby Yoda's kind of shifting him, but he's not putting it all together. And he basically sees the New Republic maybe just as a continuation of kind of a religious empire
yeah,
in a certain sense, right? So I love that tension. That's good. And these guys are, they're kind of on the edge, and they're sort of like slightly corrupt cops.
yeah,
And so I dig that. So I'm 100% all over that. Like, and again, remember, we went to that prison ship, and it was guarded by like robots, and everybody
yeah.
hates battle droids from the Clone Wars. So it's just like, how are they any better? How are they any different? They're, the client, Herzog's client, had a total point, and that it's just chaos and murder out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and and
I think that one thing I did like, and I kind of hope that they continue doing this throughout the season, is I like that this picked up right where the last one left off.
mhm.
And with him having the passenger and this egg thing, I hope that the next episode is the same thing. It's like, okay, maybe this season is going to be more of a continuous kind of timeline thing instead of jumping around to introduce you to characters and the like. Um,
I felt they did
I
a pretty good job with that last season, though. Like
Yeah.
quite often the episode would begin right at the spot where we left. It's like flip
Mhm.
the put the needle back on. But
No, it was good. Like I said, I really enjoyed the episode. It was just weird. It felt weird
yeah,
for some reason.
yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, weird rules. Like I'm all over it. So I don't. Let me just get to some nerd stuff right away. Like
Okay.
Dr. Mandible.
Hmm.
There is a mantis in the Star Wars cantina. I noticed this in episode 5. Um, the what was that one called? The gunslinger.
Hmm.
There's a bug sitting in the cantina, and so like I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, neat. Like they're not exactly the same, but I think they're meant to be. I think they might even. The intention might be that they're supposed to be the same thing. So that's like heavy nerd business, which I haven't seen other people call out on the internet yet. So it could be happening here first. Another thing I noticed. Another thing I noticed is those spiders. I'm like, I've seen these before. So I dug around, and I found a picture, like a Ralph McQuarrie painting of Dagobah with Luke. And so those spiders go way back as well. And again, I haven't seen anybody else kind of calling this out yet. So we might have it here first. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll know all about it forever. I don't think it appeared in the movie. I know there's some kind of big spidery thing in Empire, but I mean, look at his eggs, her
Yeah.
egg. Well, I don't know what the gender of a spider is in space, but anyway, so leaning on the familiar, but also no, I don't think most people are going to get that, and that's awesome. So it feels legit, and the reason is because the people that designed it, are dead and designed it like 45 years ago, kind of
Yeah.
thing. You're seeing this stuff from a long time ago. I love all that. So that's the nerd business. Now, this is such a weird topic.
Oh, you froze.
Like I have these little eggs. What's with eggs? I mean, you brought
I
it up
don't.
yourself. Right? Like it's sort of like, why is he eating eggs? I mean, think back to those Jawas though too, like Soka. And I think there was
Yeah.
with the Tusken Raiders in the last episode too with an
That was a
egg.
pearl.
It was a pearl. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, all right. Okay, so no. Obviously, the Star Wars universe loves its spheres, Death Stars, and such, torture droids and stuff like that. But anyway, eggs seem to be this sort of unofficial currency in the Star Wars galaxy, and I like that Filoni just keeps going back to that. Bigger than that, though, I think what is the most interesting about this episode is its exploration of morality, and particularly in the, like, what I've been talking to my friends about is sort of like, do you imagine if Favreau was setting up another Darth Vader story? Like Baby Yoda's already choking people. He's certainly not listening to Mando, like whether or not he can speak galactic common or whatever. But I mean, he's a little jerk in this episode. And I mean, he's a toddler, but I mean, nonetheless, he's like, he is eating children. It's like, this is a QAnon of a Republican or of a Democrat or something like that. But I just think that's really interesting. It's just fodder. Like, it doesn't have to have meaning. You can just take it for what it is. But
yeah, that was the one thing that I thought was just a little on the weird side, was just like, I didn't understand why all of a sudden the child just turned into this like egg eating machine. And there was a theory that I had, my idea that I thought was going to happen was like the eggs that the frog lady was carrying were going to freeze. And the child was like, well, I've saved these ones all, like he didn't digest them or something and like puked them all up to give them to her. So when they land on the planet, he'd have them. But no, he just legitimately ate them.
Yeah, that's sort of the Ewok adventure version of something. Like, it would be all sweet and it's like, oh, he's a good guy. No, and the second he saw the eggs, I don't think they necessarily set it up. The second I saw the eggs, I'm like, I yelled at the screen, don't eat those eggs. I know. So all I'm saying is instinctively, I felt that he's going to put those in his mouth because he's already eating frogs. He's a consumer. which I think is really interesting. So we'll see where that goes. But I mean, the bottom line is, how do you deal with people with whom you can't communicate? Because Mando really, like, it's not like you can say don't do that and he's going to understand. But does he? I mean, that's what I think is really interesting.
They tend to play with that, because even in the same episode, like when the child came around the corner and it was there's clearly, in this episode specifically, the child is making specific sounds this time. Like there is a chat that he is doing to get Mando's attention. And when Mando asks him questions, there is a response, and like he sees the footsteps in the snow kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, so does he understand? And he's flagrantly just disregarding it. Like, I know we're also, the biggest thing that we do as Star Wars fans is this is a child that looks like Yoda. So we put a lot of our Yoda knowledge onto this thing, although knowing that it hasn't gone through the training or anything like that. Like, it doesn't have it. Just because it looks and moves and sounds just like something that we know and love doesn't mean that is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And as I was discussing with some of my friends, I mean, Favreau knows that many people were disappointed with sort of Anakin's fall. And I think Abrams actually managed in some ways convincingly to make, in the third movie, to make Rey seem like, oh, like she shoots lightning out of her hands and should have killed Chewbacca. But I mean, we think for 5 minutes that she's killed Chewbacca. And I mean, that would have been a very casual slide into the dark side in a certain sense, especially if she started getting more defensive. And it would have been neat if she'd really gone down there and then Kylo brought her back. But that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, so Favreau might be thinking that, like, he might be hinting at this on purpose, so that it's just like, oh God, don't do this, Baby Yoda. Yeah. So that I think it's interesting. I think the morality that he's kind of raising here, and also setting up a tension between Mando and the child, is really cool, because you kind of feel like it's them against the world. But last episode, Baby Yoda kind of took a back seat, but this one was a lot about him, and we watch his behavior, and he is like a little baby. And I mean, he's doing anything he wants. He reminds me of someone in the news right now, but I mean, like, anyway.
Don't date this podcast.
Yeah. All right. my wife pointed out it was awesome that the frog lady wasn't just kind of like, sort of a dumb villager. Like she actually
No.
program a robot. That was awesome. Or take advantage of that. That was cool.
Yeah, and she was when she was in trouble, like she went when she did that thing where she kind of hiked up the bottom and then like started doing the jump. I'm like, holy smokes, that's really cool. And she was using the blaster as well. Like her story in terms of like, look, we've fought really hard and we found a place to live, and I'm not going to give up. I really actually liked that. I was really worried it was going to be like, but it didn't. It was like I said, the episode was really good. It was just weird.
She had kind of a Jar Jar aspect to her at first, and I mean, if you look at the end credits, she looks incredibly like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
in her original design. So yeah, no, I dig her. I don't think we got her name, so everybody's just kind of calling her Frog Lady, but whatever. Yeah. And I love that Mando moment. I don't speak frog. It's just kind of a jerk in this too.
Yeah, he was.
Sort of an Alberta thing going on here. One of the actors, Paul Sun Hyung Lee, he was the Carson. He was the X-wing pilot on the right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a Canadian. He's from he lived in Calgary briefly. It was nice to see Dave Filoni as Trapper Wolf again.
Yep.
And I like that. Kind of reminded me of that brilliant bit with the two speeder bike guys who were such jerks, and then these guys are jerks too. Like really, when it comes down to it, this isn't going to have Mando saying, "Oh, isn't the Republic great?" Like he's asking for help to fix his ship, and they're like, "Man, we've done enough. Like we've already given you a break," and it's just like, "Oh, you guys are great."
Yeah, thanks for all the help. By the way, my ship still kind of flies.
Yeah. There you go. And they didn't know that. So, I mean, essentially they left him to rot. And Filoni was one of the pilots that, blew up in that prisoner episode.
Yeah.
Like they blew up all that too. So it just seemed very arbitrary on their side, but that felt kind of real to me, having occasionally dealt with some authority tie-ups in my life.
It sounded like they were just about to come get you right now.
Yeah. The police are in the background. They're coming. I think.
We told you you're supposed to like the show.
My very favorite thing about the episode is something that they didn't do, and I was kind of screaming about this last week too, where it's just like we saw essentially Boba Fett in the last shot of the last episode, and I was really hoping that they wouldn't pick that up right away. Like I want Fett to be done. He's so important. What I love about his character is that you kind of never get very much of him, and so I don't want this long drawn out thing where he's like telling his story or whatever, So it was just like, it was cool that they just went somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
I think
so far, none of this has to do with sort of the dark saber and Moff Gideon and all that. And I'm digging that, man. It's taking him a long time to get around. Things are moving slowly, and I'm totally fine with that because this was just a monster episode, and I just loved all the monsters.
Yeah, the monsters look great.
Yeah, and Baby Yoda was probably, if you really look at the body count, the worst monster of all. No, I mean, between him and Mando, I think Mando for sure killed more baby spiders.
Yes,
I think we can clearly call that self-defense.
Yes, that was in self-defense. Although it was brought on by the baby eating one of the eggs, which set the whole. That's why I said it basically became aliens. It was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but isn't that? I mean, that's a great point you just brought up. Like I'm not going to get into like, the moral justice of toddlers, but I mean, that was Baby Yoda's fault.
Yes.
So, like, he didn't just poke it; he put it in his mouth, chewed it in half. he's so the amount of killing of children that Baby Yoda did was something to remember.
Yeah.
When Padme is watching him cry in the garage. And anyway, you got anything else?
No, that's it, man. I can't wait to see where I'm interested. An episode like this makes me also very interested to see where next week's episode is going to go.
Yeah. And I love actually that they don't do that Star Trek Discovery thing and tell us what's coming. Like we
Oh,
don't know
yes.
at all. We have no idea whatsoever. Like in the
No.
next Star Trek Discovery, for some reason, David Cronenberg is in it. David Cronenberg might be in this Star Wars episode. I don't know.
For the amount of cameos that they get, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, cool, man.
All right, man.
This is the way.
This is the way.
If you had to rate it out of 5, what would you give it?
3.5.
Yeah, I think I'd throw a 4.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards 4. Like it's just like I said, I didn't hate it. I don't know what the I'm just repeating myself.
I think watch it again. This is one of these things because we do push it out pretty fast, and so maybe next episode we'll talk about how you feel about it again, because that happened. I feel the way sometimes about this one after I first watched one of the Star Wars movies, where my head's just kind of like trying to figure out what it is I just saw. So I have a feeling on second viewing that this one's going to get better, and we'll notice some extra stuff. So
I agree. I'm gonna watch it with my wife when she gets home. I don't know how she's going to take that spider thing, though. She hates spiders with all of her might.
Oh, yeah. They're scary, even though they're beautiful. Anyway,
okay.
see you next week. Bye, Nathan.
Bye, Fish.